Happy New Year, Star Family! It's a new calendar year, 2022, and it's time for another lunar cycle video. This one is going to look at the new moon starting January 2nd, and it begins in Sagittarius, actually, on fixed star Nunki, the second brightest star in Sag. The full moon this month is going to be in the stars of constellation Cancer, and that happens on the evening of January 17th for most people in the world. It's a new month, it's a new year, not just a Gregorian year, but the sun has passed the Galactic Center for that death and rebirth process that happens every year around winter solstice, and we're in a new sidereal year, a sidereal solar year. So, new beginnings, big start, a lot of exciting stuff happening this month. The full moon especially is likely to be powerful, chaotic, kind of intense and passionate, and this whole cycle could show us who we are in a very empowering way. Or it could manifest as a little craziness. And I think whether we're able to stay on that horse, so to speak, has a lot to do with how well we understand the energies at play. So, without further ado, I just want to jump right into a 3D view and start to look at the placements this lunar cycle. On January 2nd, the sun and moon come together in constellation Sagittarius. And we're using a style of astrology here that references the actual living sky, not an approximate or even sign zodiac. So this is very different than mainstream forms of astrology. It's called true sidereal, constellational, or astronomical astrology, and it does change things. A lot of people think this new moon is a Capricorn new moon, but when we examine, is the new moon placed in Capricorn, not in the actual sky. So it's in Sagittarius, so we'll talk about it in terms of Sagittarius. The sun and moon are joined by Venus, and in rolling conjunction we have Venus and Pluto, Mercury just creeping into Capricorn. If we look at the Scorpio-Ophiuchus cusp, we'll find Mars here, and moving around we have Saturn at home in his stars of Capricorn, Jupiter in early Aquarius, where it does very well. Neptune, also like Saturn, at home in their own stars of Pisces, joined by Chiron and dwarf planet Eris. We have Uranus in the realm of Aries, and when we take a look at the nodes, we have the north node of the moon leaving the Hyades and getting very close to the Pleiades. These are the seven sisters, the Subaru, and coming around to check out the south node. South node is in Libra, and I'm pretty sure it's there for good, or until it leaves and enters Virgo. It had been sort of waffling on the Scorpio Libra cusp for a while. It was kind of entering into retrograde and direct motion in a very wobbly way. So I think it's in Libra for good now. When we look at the nodes, we do see a situation that fits the criteria for Kala Amrita Yoga, so we'll talk a little about that. It's a Vedic designation, but I've found it to be very interesting to incorporate these understandings into a Western chart interpretation. And we're going to spend some time. We're going to look at the 4 cardinal points of the cycle. We're going to look at the 4th harmonic contacts, which are the squares and oppositions, as well as conjunctions. So we'll watch the waxing quarter moon, we'll watch the full moon, we'll watch the waning quarter moon, and we'll take a sneak peek at next month's new moon. Now, the 4th harmonic contacts, one question I get pretty frequently is, why do I isolate those? There's 2 simple reasons, and they're actually related. So one reason is they represent the highest dynamic tension. A square or an opposition, as well as a conjunction, will always exhibit a sort of power. Yeah, there's usually a process that goes into reconciling or balancing that power before we can really tap into the fruit of it. But that brings me to reason number 2. They also represent the points of most potential, highest potential in the chart. So these are times, these 4th harmonic contacts, these moons, are times of high potential energy, and they're times of the expression of kinetic energy as well, actual things actually happening. Yeah, that means there's going to be emergence, there's going to be the manifestation of energies in the cycle. And as we go round the wheel of the cycle, we'll talk a little more specifically about what each 4th harmonic contact symbolizes within the context of the whole cycle, so that we can really kind of start to unpack the evolution or unfolding of a lunation. So let's jump into the chart work. And here it is. We're looking at a new moon on the 2nd of January, 2022. So, as I mentioned, the sun has made its yearly transit past the Galactic Center. So this is a period of death and rebirth, correlate with the winter solstice. And in a way, this is signifying a new sidereal year. And it may not look like it this month, but the standout features of this chart are numerous. The first thing that we can see is sun and moon are very close to fixed star Nunki. Nunki in Sagittarius. And the sun and moon are also in rolling conjunction here with Venus, Pluto, and Mercury. They're making a close trine to Uranus in Aries. And this will be, I think, the 6th or 7th month. I've actually lost track. The 6th or 7th month in which the sun and moon for a new moon make contact with Uranus. That Uranus has been all through last year, 2021, in contact with Saturn, making a square. And the energy of these cycles has been really very conscious. When the sun and moon bring the conscious, the collective conscious experience into alignment, the trine, with change, that's Uranus. And what kind of change is change to the structures of our lives, change to the structures of power, change to the systems and the institutions that we live with and under and in. And these aspects, the square from Saturn to Uranus, as well as the square from Eris to Pluto, both of which were active throughout the entirety of 2021, are now breaking. They're sort of dissolving. They're moving out of orb. The astrological term for that is separating. They're separating. It's over, baby. So the notoriously challenging aspects of the year are breaking. Eris and Pluto are no longer close as they were. They're separating, and they're out at about 2 degrees. Uranus, Saturn is out past 1 degree, and these are the aspects that really kind of defined 2021. So they've all made their final contact. These were long-term 3 contact aspects that lasted the duration of 2021. Actually, Pluto Eris goes back to late 2019. And this moving out, both those squares have made their last contact, and they're moving out of orb. And as I mentioned, it's also something called Kala Amrita Yoga, which is when all of the planets are on one side of the nodal axis. So let's take it one chart feature at a time. I think the main thing that's really happening here is the influence of Nunki. Nunki's Sigma Sagittarius. It's the second brightest star in a somewhat dim constellation of Sag. Nunki's a strange star. It's 100 times younger than our sun, and it emits 3,300 times more light. A lot of that in the ultraviolet end of the spectrum, so it's not like a really blazing bright star. But it has a very fast internal fusion rate. It's in its main sequence, which basically means it's consuming its core. But it has a very high mass, and due to a fast internal fusion rate, it's not likely to live long. It'll be, I think it'll be dead within 50 million years, which is alarmingly short for a star. Very short lifespan. Now, depending on the artistic interpretation of the centaur of Sagittarius, Nunki is either the shoulder of the arm, which gives the arrow direction, or it's the vein and shaft of the arrow itself. And I've often talked about Nunki in terms of a certain tension, like the bow is drawn, and this is the tension of a tension of a drawn bow. Richard Hinckley Allen, who wrote Star Names, Their Lore and Meaning, and that's in the public domain. That was published in 1889. He talks about Nunki in a sort of mystified way. He doesn't really know where the name came from. It's Latin for open sea. So Nunki just means the open sea. And the Chaldean astrologers in ancient Mesopotamia called it the Edict of the Sea, or the Proclamation of the Sea. The Akkadians in Mesopotamia called it the Yoke of the Sea. The Sumerians had a mythology in which Nunki was the home of the god of water. And the god of water, creation, knowledge, crafts, and mischief. That's right, Big Enki. This is a star associated with Enki very directly to the ancient Sumerians. And we don't really know what the original association with the sea is. It's sort of lost to history. But Aratus, the Greek astronomer, he referred to constellations Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. So that's this latter quarter of the zodiac. He referred to them as the sea. He associated them with water, and he did that as early as the 3rd century BC. So we don't know if that's a reference by Aratus to older, more foundational understandings like the Chaldean, Akkadian, Babylonian, Sumerian, in general Mesopotamian. That was something that seems to have popped up around 270 BC with the writings of Aratus. Vivian Robson, he calls it Pelagus. So Nunki and Pelagus, same star. Pelagus, I guess, is Latin for sea as well. Robson said that this star gives truthfulness, optimism, and a religious mind. And in his book, The Living Stars, Dr. Eric Morse says that Pelagus, or Nunki, is an indicator of one who may be expected to be an authoritative orator on Sagittarius topics like business, state or foreign affairs, religion, philosophy, truth. Interest in long-distance travel and in ships and airplanes are also indicated with this star. So, yeah, there may be some information there that helps us to understand this cycle. There may not. It seems a little more academic this month, but the Sun and Moon are so close to Nunki, I thought I'd mention it. And then we have Sagittarius, where Venus, Pluto, and Mercury... Well, Mercury's technically in Capricorn here, but definitely on the cusp. So we have a very strong Sagittarian showing this month. And this is Jupiter's star group, and it compels things towards fruitfulness, and that's a character assigned to it as far back as Babylon, as far back as like cylinder seals and inscriptions in Babylon. Sagittarius was known to be fortunate and to bring things into fruition, to help them manifest their potential and achieve their harvest. Sagittarius is about expansion. It's about the larger, bigger things. It's associated with kind of the next scale up, or the relative context of a thing. And Sag is adaptable, exploratory, philosophical. It's spiritual, shamanic. It's very wise. It's very freedom-oriented. It has a connection to restlessness and a kind of wanderlust, a very nomadic set of stars. Nomadism and even homelessness are given purview in Sagittarius. Pilgrimages, long journeys, international travel, foreigners, immigrants. These things are Sagittarian. So Sagittarius takes us beyond the boundaries. We encounter things here in Sagittarius that are beyond the limitations of the known, or of just whatever we're used to, whatever we're doing out of habit. Sagittarius wants to expand that, wants to expand our mind, it wants to expand our experience, it wants to expand our being, our sense of being, our personhood. And like Jupiter, Sag shares a quality of just making whatever it touches greater or bigger. It generates increase, and it also carries an energy of trust and faith and truth. And Sagittarius is associated with honesty and issues around honesty. It's associated with inspiration, charm, more than any other single important vocabulary to remember about Sagittarius. I find that the absolute primary meaning of Sagittarius is one of truth and natural law. And by natural law, I mean things that need no belief or Yeah, we can say that. Things that need no belief on our part to act as a law. They just are. Because they're prior to human apprehension and prior to a human attempt to describe reality. So, natural law is a theory within philosophy of ethics and philosophy generally that says that human beings possess intrinsic and inherent values that govern their reasoning and behavior. Natural law maintains that these rules are inherent in people and are not created by society, courts, judges, legal precedents, or any other means of establishing what we also think of as law. Natural law, for example, and an example of natural law that I could easily give is just everybody wants to be happy. Nobody wants to be sad. Nobody likes suffering. So, yeah, we all want to be happy. You want to increase happiness. That seems like a natural law. Nobody pointed their finger at us and, shook their nightstick and said, hey, you cheer up. So, because Sagittarius has this strong emphasis on natural law and on understanding things as they really are, compassion is a major Sagittarian trait. And compassion arises when an understanding of natural law combines with a genuine altruism or an interest in others. And compassion is incredibly valuable as a constructive, a solution-oriented response to suffering. Compassion, by definition, is the desire that beings not suffer. So if you see someone suffering and you have the response, I wish their suffering could stop, that is an expression of compassion. So we can engage with suffering while staying oriented to solutions and oriented to constructivity, oriented to the positive. We can touch suffering without getting burdened and weighed down by it. This is the incredible value of compassion. And at the same time, we preserve our positivity in situations that can really drain our resources if we don't have genuine compassion. So this month, we can cultivate all this very robustly. And these stellar qualities condition the expression of Venus, Mercury, and Pluto, as well as Sun and Moon. And we should talk about the downside of Sag. The downside of Sag is it is a zealot. It will try to convert you. It will try to get you to think the way it does. It has a really, it just thinks it's right about everything. It can lean towards intellectual arguments and clashes, and it's got a real charming quality, which may or may not seem like a bad thing, but taken to an extreme, Sagittarians can, or let's just say Sagittarius, and not make it personal, because this is really about the collective experience. Sagittarius can really be a sort of silver-tongued devil, just saying all the things that you want to hear, and really baiting the trap very nicely. It's restless and it's wayward. So these are some of the Sagittarian traits that generally considered less desirable. We do have contact between Saturn and Sun and Moon. We have this very close semi-sextile, and that resonance is really going to help us have access to some of the level-headedness and reservation that can balance too much or too extreme expressions of Sagittarius. The ruler of Sun and Moon is Jupiter in Aquarius. And Jupiter is very happy in Aquarius. In fact, Jupiter and Aquarius and Jupiter and Uranus, Uranus and Sag are some of the very, very fortunate and powerful combinations in astrology. Some would even say the very best, the very most auspicious combinations. So Jupiter's happy in Aquarius, and Uranus in Aries is trining the Sun and Moon. So if we take the chain of dispositorship up, ruler of Jupiter is Uranus here. And this Uranus is trine Sun and Moon. So we have Sun-Moon resonance with Jupiter and Sun-Moon contact with Uranus. That's very good. I'm always very pleased to see that. That has a sort of smell like it just might be good. Gives me the idea that opportunity could present itself, or auspicious circumstances could manifest, or that things would be somehow assisted in a significant way this month, in spite of the difficulties that may emerge. We do have Akala Amrita Yoga, and this is a later Vedic designation. Later in that it's not part of the body of ancient Vedic astrology. It was sort of discovered or noticed much later, much closer to the present day. And when we have all of the bodies on one side of the heavens with the nodes, then the node that's leading, and the nodes do move differently to the planets. The nodes move clockwise around this chart, where the planets move counterclockwise. So because South Node is leading here, what it's talking about is a situation in which we're going to be entering a time where the action is to sort of incline people inwards, and in a sort of retreating kind of way. It's a very spiritual influence. It's not about worldly gain or worldly progress. We can feel at these times like we aren't able to make progress in our ordinary ground level life. And what is asking for, what this phase of time is asking for, is basically to do the inner work and deal with the invisible world of psyche and soul and feelings and mentality, and really start to clean the cobwebs and organize ourselves as far as our inner world, our inner life goes. We don't have a lot of info. There's no, like I said, no ancient knowledge on this. So I'm just going to leave that there. We'll be in this phase. It usually lasts a couple months. At this time, all of the inner planets are pretty well back. I haven't run the charts or done the projections on this, but we could be in Kala Amrita Yoga for longer than usual this time. So it could be lasting, a couple months or more. And we're also, with the nodes, dealing with a situation where South Node is moving through Libra, that's Venus's stars, and North Node is moving through Taurus, that's Venus's stars. And I have done the chart work on that, and it lasts until about late June, early July, due to the wobble of the nodes. It just depends on how you read it. It'll leave and come back and leave and come back and then finally leave. And that'll happen around summer 2022. So we're in this thing already. We're in this nodal phase defined by Venusian energies. And this will lead us to, collectively, to, I think, perhaps harmony and the stabilization of something that could be valuable. It could be could be important. It has the possibility of being difficult with this north node on Alcyon and the Pleiades. And it has the possibility of uplifting or involving or exalting the feminine. And not necessarily women, but collectively there's going to be an emphasis on the feminine within everybody. And you could call that the feminine principle or whatever you like. So basically the sun and moon on Nunki, the two main bodies conditioning it, are the two big auspicious players in this whole thing, Jupiter and Uranus, and that is a really fabulous start to the cycle. The whole cycle doesn't remain fabulous, but we can put the new moon down and start to move through this material, the material of the other charts. So on January 9th, we'll have a waxing quarter moon when the moon has gone 1/4 way around and is squaring Sun exactly. And this moon is with Eris, and this Sun is with Venus and Pluto. And Mercury is with Saturn. The North Node is very close to the Pleiades. And there's something else happening. Oh, Jupiter is on Fomalhaut, fixed star Fomalhaut. So we have the royal star Fomalhaut involved in this lunar cycle. So when we look at all of this, Sun with Venus, Pluto, Mercury with Saturn, Moon with Eris, and we see this square, we also see Mars trined up to the Moon. In spite of the lunar nodes being in this Venus axis, I think this could easily spell projection style relationship problems. You have Eris, Moon square Venus, Mercury with Saturn. Arguments could be intense with Scorpio Mars trining that Pisces Eris moon. And the North Node on Pleiades is associated with stubbornness and anger. I should say Pleiades are associated with stubbornness and anger. So there really could, at the time of the waxing quarter moon, emerge differences of opinion that would need to be navigated skillfully in order that we don't say something maybe regrettable. There isn't a whole lot going on here. I don't want to overanalyze or get into every last chart feature. I will say Sun, Venus in Sag. A lot of people are inclined to read Sun-Venus conjunction as positive because they're both benefics in Western astrology. But a conjunction is a very neutral combination. And the Sun and Moon are square. The Sun and Jupiter, its own ruler, are semi-square. And all of this sets up a little bit more realistic an interpretation from me. Anyway, that is not able to encompass the sort of like love and light interpretation of Sun conjunct Venus. In this instance, that's not a law or a rule for Sun Venus. I'm just talking about what I see in this chart. And moving on to the full moon. Full moon looks very interesting. The moon will be at home in Cancer, early Cancer, and the sun will have passed Pluto and still be in very close conjunction. The Sun-Moon opposition and Pluto-Moon opposition is T² by Eris, and Uranus stations direct At the time of the full moon, I can only say that Jupiter is going to be on fixed star Fomalhaut to very, very close degree, 6 minutes. And so we should look a little bit at the influence of Fomalhaut, since it's affecting the ruler of Sun. The moon is reflecting the light of Sun, and as always, Sun is of primary importance. So Fomalhaut, as one of the 4 royal stars of Persia, the 4 archangel stars, the 4 watchers at the corner, it's got a pretty simple formula. The formula for the royal stars is that they give power. They infuse anything with power. So we have Jupiter and Jupiter power. Jupiter's power will resonate with Sagittarius, and that power will radiate. And the power of Jupiter and Sag is in line with the qualities we talked about earlier in the video. The qualities of truth, the qualities of expansion and exploration. And in the case of Jupiter, Fomalhaut is going to give Jupiter spiritual power. It's going to give Jupiter temporal power. And it's going to generate power that comes with a test. And this is similar to what we talked about last month, because Sun and Moon were on Antares. And Antares is a royal star. So we talked about drama, talked about frivolous drama, drama for drama's sake. Fomalhaut is a bit different. It gives power, and it tends to really emphasize purity of vision. So people who have a purity of vision, that's not always a good thing. And this is the test of Fomalhaut. Fomalhaut says, no, you have purity of vision. That can go either way. Do you have integrity that guides the purity of your vision? And if you get power from Fomalhaut and then are seen or known to be lacking integrity, to be unintegral, to be corrupt, you can easily lose all your power. The royal stars are really interesting in that they're associated by many, many, many astrologers with downfall. But it's not a star of downfall. It's a star of a test. It's a test of power and how we handle it. So for the second month in a row, a royal star and its test are going to figure in an important way into the lunar cycle that we're undergoing. We have Mars approaching the Galactic Center, and it will wrap up its bi-yearly cycle. Mars makes about 2 years rotation around the Sun. And it's, for that reason, makes about 2 years rotation around the zodiac. So every couple years Mars passes the Galactic Center, and it's about to. With this full moon, I really want to take a moment and examine the archetype of Cancer. Cancer is often, the textbook on it is, it represents our emotions, our feelings, our security. Cancer is, nurturing. Cancer is caretaking. And all those things are true. But Cancer is actually representing the ego. And, in Aries, we learn about what's instinctive and how we become who we want to be, who we need to be, and who we really are. In Taurus, we develop values and an inner sense of meaning. We develop self-appreciation. And then in Gemini, we start to learn about and classify the outer world. In Cancer, we get a name, we get an identity, we get a heritage in its association with home and family, and we acknowledge ourselves as distinct from other beings. So Cancer is very much having to do with the ego. And Cancer is about becoming consciously aware of ourselves as a subjective self. And this is who we are. And we have an ego, and an ego is necessary, and it's important. An ego is a vortex of energy within consciousness, the lens of the projector through which the movie of the soul can be seen. And this is interesting because Pluto is the unconscious. Pluto is the soul energy of a human being, where Moon is then the conscious ego mind. And we have this opposition, T squared by Eris. So that does set up a little bit of a disconnect between who we really are at our core, our deepest level, what our soul wants, and then who we are in our mind consciously, and what we want, what we think we want anyway. And you could argue that the goal of evolution is actually to bring these two forces, Moon and Pluto, the mind and the deep mind, or the mind and the soul, the ego and the soul, together. So, like Aries, Cancer is about self-image, and Cancer is really about how we see ourselves inwardly, not how others see us. So, for that reason, my friends, I do think that with Pluto and Sun in Sag opposite Moon in Cancer, we could really see an opportunity to expand our sense of ourself in accord with the truth of our real nature. And this is a very powerful opportunity. And it's not without its obstructors and obstacles, because Eris here at the T-square is really going to generate some friction, and in Pisces, some confusion. Very, very much likely to not be a straightforward process, this process of getting the ego and the soul in touch, but that's really the potential that's being talked about here in this full moon chart. And then we'll get the waning quarter up. We have January 25th, it's waning quarter moon, 2022. This moon is very closely trine at 10 arc minutes to Jupiter. From analytical, self-critical, delightfully perfectionistic Virgo. Now, with a moon in late Virgo trine Jupiter on Fomalhaut, we're likely to see that theme of power with the test of integrity. The test of integrity, and by integrity I mean our thoughts, our speech, our intentions, our actions. Are they aligned? Are they in order? Are they moving in a focused way? The Sun has moved into Capricorn and past Mercury. That Sun is, of course, square the Moon. That's what makes it a waning quarter moon. And Mars has rounded the Galactic Center and entered Sag for a new, expansive expression of its own energies. And we see Venus in Sagittarius closely trying to Uranus in Aries, giving that fiery unusual way of doing things, thinking about things, appreciating maybe the eccentric, the eclectic, the unique, the rebellious, maybe even with Uranus and Aries, the rambunctious. Could be, that could happen. And the last thing I notice is that this moon sits opposite to Uranus, so we still have a theme resonant with this continued Uranus contact at each of all of the last 6 or 7 new moons. We have close Uranus contact. It's just a year. The last year, the latter half of it was a year of change, and that's what Uranus brings. I think for the waning quarter moon, trine Jupiter on Fomalhaut, what I think about that is that we're likely to see a sense of reflection, a sense of looking inward. One, because that's the nature of the waning quarter moon, and 2, because that's the nature of Kala Amrita Yoga. So we'll be in this way, and we'll be likely to have an opportunity to examine our values and our relationship with power, and with Sun close to Saturn, maybe also our relationship with authority. The waning quarter moon is a moon that's carrying the energy of just sitting back and observing, where the waxing quarter moon is one of working, to build, to approach the full moon. The waning quarter moon is one of like thinking, looking back, seeing what worked, scrapping what didn't, and just kind of winding down. It's a lower energy cycle, and we'll just be making way for the next new moon. And I did say I would detail the meanings of the cardinal points. The new moon is always the seed of the cycle, and it indicates the nature of the plant that will grow out of it. And the full moon is the full expression, the fruiting, the harvest of that plant. So in a month's time, every month, we just come out of this new moon, entering into waxing quarter. We start to see the emergence. We start to see what we're working on. We get inspired. We can like dig in and take some action in alignment with what's being asked for. And at the time of the full moon, we're really seeing, like I said, the fruit, the harvest. And then at the waxing quarter, we're just looking back, analyzing, learning from the cycle, and making way. Like I said, jettisoning what didn't work and making way for the next new moon. Which brings us, my friends, to the next new moon. So there are definitely auspicious and inauspicious elements to this new moon. We're here in February. It's 1st February that we're looking forward to, 2022. And we see Sun and Moon in Capricorn with Saturn. And that is very likely to give a flavor of just restriction, reservation, contraction. It's very likely to give an energy of seriousness, some somber, might not be easy to access the full spectrum of the emotions you usually have access to. And another thing I notice is that these bodies, which are still in Sag, are making some powerful relationships. Venus and Mars are both squaring Chiron and trining Uranus, and true to form, Sun and Moon will closely square Uranus. So we'll unpack all that, much more, next month when we get to looking at the February 1st new moon. I welcome you to 2022, for better or worse. I'm sure it will deliver the goods that it has in its little goodie bag for each of us. And I really appreciate you watching all of this. If you like the video, please like. If you want to see more, please subscribe to my channel. If you are interested in this kind of astrology and you would like to meet other people, other practitioners, and sort of talk about, the sky, come hang out on the Sidereal Revolution. That's Sidereal Revolution on Facebook. This is where a lot of us practitioners and students and dabblers and all interested parties are kind of converging. And I invite you formally, just come check it out. All right, my friends, I think that brings us to the conclusion of this video. As always, I wish you the very best with everything. I will see you next month, and until then, thank you for watching. Goodbye.